And good morning and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, May 30th. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined by my colleague, Creative Loafing editor-in-chief, Ray Aroa. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mitch. How's it going?
It's going
nice job
great.
last week, by the way.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed your holiday weekend.
Yep.
So we're back doing a special show, Ray, for our listeners. If you're not aware, we're day 3 of the WMNF's summer fundraising drive. That's right, this public radio station. We're doing it again, folks. We have to do it 3 times a year, and we do it, and we stay on the air because of your support, your financial support. So before we get too much into this, let's just tell you right now the telephone number to call if you'd like to contribute any dollar amount to the show. We're on here till 12 noon. Our goal is $1,300, and we'd love to hear from you right now. 813-239-9663 is the telephone number. You can also, if you can't call us right now, you can go online. You can look at us up at WMNF.org. There's a very convenient way to contribute there, and we can talk about some of the great gifts that we have for you if you are so kind of as to call in. But Ray, let's talk about here. We've been doing the Skinny for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah,
it seems like it's longer than that.
It feels like forever in a way.
Yes, we're now a twosome, a duo. We had our Ben Montgomery, of course, was with us for much of the first couple of years here, and Ben is now doing his own thing. We miss him, and he did great with us, of course. But here we are, and fun. This show, of course, I think we're hopefully making a difference for people who tune in regularly. We usually get some great guests. And let me just tell you, in a couple of minutes, about 5 minutes or so, we're going to have Congressman Maxwell Frost from the Orlando area, of course, who is still, at 28, the youngest man in Congress of all 535 members of the Senate and House in Washington. So you'll want to look forward to listening to that. We've got I think it'll be a very interesting interview. But we've got, obviously, we've had some really interesting interviews over the last few months, and we continue to try to do that, bring you a lot of local and state lawmakers, people who are making policies, stopping policies from happening, bad policies in some situations, and just giving you a sense of the world of where we're at right now, a very intense situation politically. And I would dare say, of course, when it comes to public broadcasting, a perilous situation right now for stations like WMNF with proposed cuts to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which does provide funding in some cases here for stations like WMNF.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the really unique thing and the thing that we all love about WMNF is how the community just rallies around it. You have this public affairs block, 5 days a week here, really important stuff. Again, I always talk about this. I look through the window and I see Chris Young in the newsroom over there working. When I'm out reporting for our paper, guess who's always there? Mitch, if he's in town, and then everybody sees Chris because Chris is the tallest guy in the room. He's got his recorder, and then he's filing in the afternoon. And that service for the community is big, but WMNF is so unique in that it's the listeners who make a decision during fund drives like this to say, hey, I got this money in my pocket. Today I'm going to skip this or that, and I'm going to get another bumper sticker, my 20th WMNF bumper sticker, whatever it is. And that is the reason I am sitting in this room today. The air conditioner is on, Sean. The lights are on. Things work in here. There's recording equipment. You cannot, overstate how crucial it is to have the community pitch in to do this. And I wish the community could come in and just see this sometimes, because it is an incredible operation that they're running here. But it only happens if you call us.
Yeah, exactly. And again, 3 times a year we do this. This will be only the second Friday of the 3 Fridays we'll do this out of the 52 that we're on every Friday morning here on the Skinny between 11 a.m. and 12 noon. And again, I really appreciate all the people who do listen to this program each and every week. If just, some of you out there, actually, let's talk to a specific listener out there. Think about it. If you haven't called in ever before, this would be the great time that we can hear from you, welcome you on to the station. We always get new listeners, of course, tuning in. This program has been doing this I've been, of course, involved with MNF off and on for 25 years now, actually. But we've been doing the Skinny here, specifically this program from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. And, are we on the right path here? If we're doing interesting things, which I like to think we are, but maybe we're not. I mean, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us one way or the other. Give us a call right now, 813-239-9663. We do have some gifts. You mentioned bumper sticker. What kind of things?
Yeah, so here? This is completely biased, but I think this might be the best round of merch that WMNF has done. Obviously, it's our summer fun drive, so there's a little bit of a summer theme. Zero silence, just waves. But there's all kinds of stuff on here. Obviously, there's always a different WMNF T-shirt. This one is beach themed. It's a seafoam green. That's available for $100 or just $10 a month. There's also a black T-shirt. It's a Circle of Friends T-shirt that you can get for $10 a month. But also the beach stuff, a cooler backpack, which is very cool. This might be the first cooler backpack in WMNF history, and that's available for $120 or just $10 a month. It's this cooler backpack. If anybody goes to the beach, goes fishing, you know how these work. You put your ice packs in there, and then your food or beverage of choice. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about things that you put in your backpack. There's side pockets for your water bottle. You strap it on, you bring it to the beach or your hike, you throw it in the back of your car for when you go camping on the day trip. So that's there.
What is that? What we
so the pledge there is just $120,
okay,
and that's $10 a month. I can think of some really lousy things that I spend $10 a month on that I need to eliminate in my life as I move towards this personal austerity. But WMNF, we are so lucky that we do have a place in people's minds, in their wallets, and in their financial plans. As far as making room for us and making sure that they pitch in and telling us that this kind of stuff matters, because WMNF really is, we have this public affairs block, but the people who contribute to the public affairs stuff, they listen to the music too. They come to the events. And when you do that, you kind of see how, crucial a station like this is. I think we're different from a whole lot of other entities locally in that, again, I always go back to the founder story. A bunch of people knocked doors around the Bay Area and asked people what they wanted from a radio station. They collected money, ended up in a house, stored records in a bathtub, and they just built this thing. And it is incredible. Speaking of that, Mitch, let me just say, the bumper sticker, it's $35 or $5 a month. It's wild. It says independent radio, live and local, and then there's a big tag at the bottom. It says on the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if these were printed ahead of these legislative changes or not.
You don't know? No, that's intentional there. Gulf of Mexico.
But it looks pretty great.
So we're looking for the very first call into the station right now, 813-239-9663. Let's see some contributions here for the skinny. Okay, now we're going to go live right now and speak with a Democratic U.S. Rep Maxwell Frost via Zoom. Congressman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, great to have you here with us, Congressman. So got you here for a few minutes here, so really excited to talk to you. Want to begin right now and talk about Elon Musk. This is Elon Musk's last day running Doge at the White House, and I want to ask you about what he and the Department of Government Efficiency did. And there's been a lot of reporting, the last couple days that it's been somewhat he's been disappointed, or that somehow the cuts that he was able to make through Doge, and or because they're not included in the big beautiful bill. But I would think, and I would like to hear your thoughts about this, obviously, that there's been a lot of damage done already. We hear that Speaker Mike Johnson says he intends to bring up what's being called a rescissions bill of about $9 billion, and that's going to include more cuts on things like proposed cuts to NPR and PBS. And look what has happened to USAID. Reading New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg this morning, she writes in a column entitled Elon Musk's Legacy is Disease, Starvation, and Death. She quotes a professor at Boston University named Brooke Nichols, who has estimated that cuts to USAID have already resulted in 300,000 deaths, most of them children. What are your thoughts about the legacy of Doge and Elon Musk as he departs the White House today?
The legacy will be a dark legacy. These cuts to our federal programs here at home have made it so veterans receive less services. It takes more time to get to the services. I've seen this firsthand as I've traveled the country, especially to rural red districts, speaking with voters. We've seen that it's had massive impacts on higher education, institutions of higher education across the entire nation, impacts on the Social Security Administration. I've been speaking with folks who receive disability from SSI, who literally the wait times now are longer than they've ever been. People are dying, waiting for the benefits and earned benefits that they deserved. And so these cuts were not made in good faith. Look, everyone's for government efficiency. Hell, I'm the youngest member of Congress. I want government modernization. But what they did is they did what they said they would do. And they said they would run the country like a company. And the companies that Elon's run, look at what he did to Twitter. He came in with this slash and burn mentality. And within a few months, the worth of Twitter, now X, is way less than what it used to be before. Same thing with Donald Trump and his multiple bankrupt companies. And so this corporate slash and burn mentality is not how you run a country. We don't want the country run like a company. We want the country run like a country, where we are looking at what services that we're able to have for our people and making sure that there's economic freedom for everybody. These USAID cuts are devastating. Global health is important to health here. The model or the projections on HIV, on how that is going to explode globally, talking about 100,000 deaths in the immediate, and we could see a epidemic of HIV again in the United States over the coming years because of the way that our people travel. This stuff matters. Basic health and research matters, and it's going to really come back home quickly. People are saying it impacts now, but they'll see impacts years into the future as well. I think this bill that Johnson is bringing to codify some of the DOGE cuts, in part, is probably meant to placate Elon. It's why the bill is coming up at the exact moment that he is leaving. And technically, he actually hasn't been in charge of DOGE for several weeks.
Yeah.
Today, is when his status as a special government employee, which is a specific category created for, if you bring in a celebrity or a business owner to be a part of a council or an advisor to a president, it's a temporary status that they misused. And so when Democrats take back the House, we're going to need to put some guardrails on that designation because it was misused for Elon Musk.
Yes, indeed. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to Skinny here on WMNF. We're doing live interview here with Congressman Maxwell Frost. We're also fundraising here, so looking for the first phone call in here to help us out here. Raise our the level is $1,300. We're trying to raise here before 12 noon. Congressman, so many things I want to get to you before we have you. We got about 10 minutes with you. I want to ask you about Democrats. People are talking a lot about the Democratic Party, as you know, after what happened last November, and part of this discussion is about age, quite frankly. We know, of course, you're the youngest man in Congress. Some say there's a reversed ageist attitude of the Democratic Party. We've lost, tragically, you lost Jerry Connolly recently there in the House, and before that, Raul Grijalva. There's been 3 Democrats that have died this year, tragically, 6 since April 2024. But part of this shows the fact is there's a lot of older people in leadership in the Democratic Party. We saw this incident with David Hogg recently at the DNC, what's going on with him. AOC tried to get that oversight commission. Can you talk to us about that? Because I think as people look at the Democratic Party, and as you know, it's being micro-examined right now after last November's election about how the party can boost itself back up. But on the issue of age and what you see there, and is there issues there in D.C., particularly with Democratic establishment in terms of allowing younger people like yourself to get more leadership responsibilities there?
There are issues within our party in terms of uplifting young people, and not even just uplifting young people, but making sure that it's a level playing field for young people to be represented at higher levels. I mean, I'm part of the Democratic leadership. I ran for the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, which I'm proud to be a part of, and we're doing some good work in making sure that we're not just communicating to the people who consume news as a hobby, but that we're getting out there and speaking with everyday Americans in many different ways. However, we still have a lot more work to do, and we do have a problem in terms of young people being uplifted and being able to serve. I think this age of people being in the same elected office for a long, long time, I think it needs to end. And I think it's really important, of course, for the preservation of our democracy and our party, but also to ensure that we always have new people. I think it's really important in a core tenet of government.
Max, I'm wondering, in your talks with your young constituents, here at our publication, we talk to young people just disillusioned with it and really thinking about voting for a third party or giving up on Democrats. You mentioned, wanting to see the Democrats take Congress back. What are you telling those types of constituents when you're back out in the community now?
Well, I get people's frustration with the two-party system. I think it's a pretty flawed system, and doesn't really serve what we think it serves or what some people think it serves. However, it is the way things are right now, and I don't see a way to really change it. And so I think a better way to view the Democratic Party is not as a party, but as the Democratic Coalition. I've even joked around with people about even changing the name. I mean, everyone hates a political party, but what Democrats are is we're less of a party. We're more of a coalition of people from many different walks of life who really have many different ideologies. There are people who have many different opinions than I do, but we're Democrats. And the way I think people should think about it is like that. We are a political coalition. We come together around election time and through very important political battles to elect people who generally agree with us on some core tenets that, it is important to use the resources of our country to make sure that everybody is uplifted. It is important to ensure that everyone's paying their fair share and that we, of course, raise taxes on billionaires and the wealthiest corporations in this country to ensure that we can uplift standard of life for everyone. There's a lot of core tenets that Democrats believe in. And I think there's value in having a broad political coalition so we can keep fascists and people like this out of office. And, some people who say both parties are the same, I'm hoping that people are learning now that that's not true.
Again, I'm sorry, Congressman. Just want to get here, get as many questions as we can in with you. We're talking live with Orlando area Congressman Maxwell Frost, a Democrat who was elected in 2022 and reelected last year. And we're also fundraising here on WMNF 88.5 FM. Looking for your contribution to the skinny here. Please give us a call at 813-239-9663. Congressman, I want to talk about the issue of immigration. Of course, here in Florida, we saw a raid yesterday, and a high-profile raid in Tallahassee. 100 people detained, at least 35 arrested. You yourself went to El Salvador last month to demand the release of a Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was deported there without due process by ICE. There was a lot of concerns, and your colleagues also have made that trip down there. I want to talk to you overall about the issue of immigration, though. Again, we're seeing here Ron DeSantis is lockstep with Donald Trump. He's deputized the entire Florida Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, et cetera. We're going to see a lot more of these raids here in the next coming months and years here. But obviously immigration is an issue that we heard a lot, is what people wanted, that they did support Donald Trump in that respect, and that it hurt when Joe Biden, when we saw this record number of people crossing the border, undocumented people over the last 3 years. Where do you stand on this? I know on an issue, again, like Mr. Abrego Garcia, you're fighting for due process, but obviously, there's so many people now, and this is what he says he was elected on, and so where are you at in terms of like dealing with this issue right now of how we address this issue, which did seem to hurt the Democrats last year in the election?
Yeah, well, I would actually push back and say, I think we need people to think critically about these issues and the polls and the way Trump won on some of them. And what's important to know is most of the voters who voted for Trump based on the southern border did not think he would do or disagreed with this part of his agenda, which is, and I actually don't call it mass deportation anymore, because deportation is a process and the process isn't being followed. When you have people in masks scooping people up off of the street with no due process and sending them to gulags in other nations, that's not deportation. Deportation is a legal process. And so what's going on is actually mass human trafficking, kidnapping, and abduction of people here on U.S. soil. And that is something that if you poll the average swing voter, they even say they either believed he wouldn't have done that or just disagreed with that part of it. There's a difference between people who are voting based on immigration policy, and the southern border. And it's true. We need more. We need to fix this broken immigration system. We need more resources at the border. But what we need is an orderly process, more immigration judges, more folks to help facilitate an orderly process of the legal right that our country gives to all humans in this world, that you have a legal right to claim asylum at our border. And what the president is doing now, I believe, is unconstitutional and illegal in denying that legal right of claiming asylum, like my mom did as a refugee who came here from Cuba in the late 1960s. And so part of what Democrats need to do is work on, I think we're seeing a lot of potholes of our democracy now, and we have to fill these potholes when we take back the majority in terms of passing laws to enshrine the rights of all people and immigrants, regardless of status, even more, and actually fix this problem and provide a speedy path to citizenship for undocumented people in this country. There's also the legal route in terms of what's going on right now that has been successful in some places and unsuccessful in others. Like we just saw that horrible decision from the Supreme Court in terms of TPS for folks from Venezuela. And so what I tell people, and what I think all members of Congress and elected officials should be doing, is focusing locally on the community. One of the first things I did when Trump took office is I called a meeting of all the lead immigration organizers, advocates, attorneys, legal aid organizations in Orlando. We got together, closed doors for 2.5 hours, and talked about process, talked about how we communicate with each other, take care of one another, alert each other what's going on in Orlando, and protect our immigrant community. I've held roundtables and town halls with pastors. I did one with a group of Haitian pastors to talk about their rights. I brought a lawyer with me to talk about their rights for their congregation. And I think it's really important. Honestly, this is our first line of defense right now, because the ICE raids are, it's not a thing happening in the Capitol. It's a thing happening in the community. The response is going to have to be in the community, but also legally as well. And then members of Congress, we need to do our part to show up where things are happening. And that's why I went to El Salvador. I didn't want to go to El Salvador. I want to be home. But the reason I went there is because I had hundreds of constituents calling me. I had hundreds of people coming to me and telling me, Kilmar Borrego Garcia is me. I have a temporary status. I'm here. I was told by a judge I could be here. Can it be me next? And so it's about him, but it's not just about him. It's about hundreds of people that were sent there with him, and the thousands and tens of thousands of more that are being sucked up into this horrible, inhumane mass human trafficking campaign.
All right, we're about to leave it there. But now, you Congressman, as you know, we're actually fundraising here. We're a public radio station. Are you concerned about the proposed cuts to NPR and PBS?
I am very concerned. This is... Fascists and authoritarians, they always attack the same stuff at first. They attack the arts, they attack independent media, they attack institutions of higher learning, and they attack the immigrants and LGBTQ plus folks. And that's what's going on right now. And that's why NPR and PBS are being sucked up into this political battle. It's an attack on information, because knowledge is power. They don't want people to be knowledgeable. They don't want people to be powerful, so they can continue to pass laws that will help the billionaires and wealthiest corporations in this country and leave the rest of us with crumbs like they've done for generations. And so we need PBS, NPR, independent media to help empower the people, not for a specific political movement, but just to empower people through knowledge, nonpartisan knowledge. And I think that's really important, and different points of view. And that's what NPR, that's what PBS gives us. So people should definitely support. It's really important in this moment. Let's stop the attack on Big Bird.
All right. All right. We'll leave it there. Congressman Maxwell Frost, thank you so much for your time this morning, Congressman.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Okay. So there you have it, live. And you heard the pitch there for public broadcasting here. Again, Mitch Perry, Ray Roa, here we're live. It's 11:28 in the morning here. WMNF's Skinny. That was Congressman Maxwell Frost talking about the power of independent media. Not about partisanship. It's about giving you the power of information.
Knowledge is power, he said, and they don't want you to have power.
And,
right.
So that's what we're doing, Ray. We're here. We're trying to raise $1,300. We got a half hour to go till 12 noon. I think we have actually gotten our first call in here. So I want to thank actually great. 2 calls we've gotten.
And before you announce those calls, the phone number, if you want to call in and get in on this line here, 813-239-9663. Make a donation. We'd be happy to read your name on the air and a message for the listeners.
Yeah,
what do you have there, Mitch?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Yes, indeed. So we want to thank Linda Bridge from Dunedin. She's contributing to the Circle of Friends. $120. That's $10 a month. You can do the same right now. Hopefully that you can manage that. $10. That's all it is a month. We take that throughout the entire year. So $120 contribution. She's getting the Women's Artist short sleeve T-shirt, which I don't think we've talked about that. We will in a moment here. Thank you so much for that, Linda. And then a good friend, Melissa from Plant City. She is a big fan of the Skinny, and she is also going to get the Women's Artist short sleeve T-shirt. And thank you so much for that. $100. Very generous. generous contribution, Melissa, from Plant City. Okay, we've got 2 calls there, $200. We need to get 1,100 more, something like that.
That's right. So we need somebody to step up here. 813-239-9663, the number. And I want to point out, sometimes we take for granted that a legislator like Maxwell Frost will just call in like that. And part of that is the work that Mitch does when he's not on the microphone here. He is known to me as a longtime reader of Creative Loafing, where he was a staffer, as the political animal. There's legends of Mitch coming into the office at 4 a.m. And doing his thing. And he files so many stories at the Florida Phoenix. And we're able to bring a lot of that reporting here. We bring it to WMNF. It ends up on the WMNF blog. And you end up with sound and statements and news on the record in perpetuity here. And that's just part of what you're building here at WMNF. And that only happens with contributions from some of the listeners. I think Sean has some in his hand.
So I have some people to thank from Down and Dirty. This is at the end of Down and Dirty, but I do want to encourage people to call in and support the great programming you get on the Skinny. 813-239-9663. You can also donate on our website, which is WMNF.org. If you go to WMNF.org, you can take a look at all of our thank you gifts and pick out the one that works for you. Or you can call one of our phone bank volunteers at 813-239-9663. Here are the last 3 people that donated during Down and Dirty. Christine Orlando contributed $500. Thank you so much. Also, Ann Delaney from Tampa, $25 contribution, is getting a WMNF magnet. And Rick Hagberg from St. Petersburg is getting one of the turquoise bowls that John Dingfelder made and is donating $50. So thank you so much to everybody who donated during Down and Dirty. Thanks to our first contributions that have come in for the Skinny. But we're waiting to hear from you. 813-239-9663 or WMNF.org.
Yeah, we got a long way to go. We need about $1,100 here to help the station and to tell the station that you want the Skinny to stay on the air. There's WMNF trucker hat. Actually, it's the classic $88.50
now,
gift.
What makes it a trucker hat versus a regular ball cap?
Yeah, because when I'm on the road looking at truckers, they don't wear these hats, but it's that classic hat with the mesh in the back. If you have great hair like me, it just comes out the back.
The flowing hair,
it's
like
flowing. And this is the logo actually on the front. It's different from other MNF stuff. I think a lot of people really want to wear stuff that just says WMNF in big, bold letters, and it does. It's red. It's a navy cap, and it just says WMNF straight across, and it says independent radio on there. It's a 6-panel cap. That's an embroidered design, adjustable snapback.
Yes, and available for an $88.50 contribution. Also, we have available, we're doing those beach stuff here. And again, if you just tune in and listen to Skinny here, Mitch Perry with Sean Kinnan actually hanging out with us today. And of course, Ray Roa, as we're fundraising for this show and for WMNF overall, live, local, independent radio. It's been on the air since 1979 through listeners like yourself who've been very generous over the decades in keeping us on the air. Now we're in year, 46 of this project here. It's been incredible. I've been great to be a part of the experience. Yeah, I've been part of the MNF family for basically 25 years now. Came here from San Francisco in 2000, of course, hired as the assistant news director, and had many other jobs since then, but I'm still attached to this station. I can't let go of it. And so I know you can't. That's the same way. That's why you're still listening right now. So please give us a call right now. We've got some other great gifts. Kind of fun. Kind of here. We've also got the $35 bumper sticker. It talks about the independent radio, live and local on the Gulf of Mexico. Kind of defiant there. Of course, before the legislature passed that as well here. And we're going to get in trouble from Ron DeSantis, not only Donald Trump, by calling it the Gulf of Mexico. But again, 813-239-9663. In a couple moment here, we're going to go back to some sound. Sean, if you can get that queued up, the Laura Hines sound, I think we're going to want to get in a minute there. But again, before we do that,
there's also some smaller stickers for a $25 contribution. There's a blue sticker. I've never seen this blue design. It's a 3-inch WMNF sticker, and it also says live and local on the Gulf of Mexico. There's a 4-inch refrigerator magnet on there, and that's available for a donation of $25 as well. Every little bit counts. It is amazing how good you feel after for you, call in. Because when you call in, you're going to talk to a volunteer in the other room. They're going to talk to you like a human. How many things do we call every day? And there's no human there. There's a human, and you're going to contribute, and you're going to feel really good about doing your part to help keep this community radio station on the air.
You know, one of the questions I had written down to ask Maxwell Frost, but we didn't have time, was I wanted to ask him, he introduced Bernie Sanders at Coachella last month. And I was sitting there watching on the Saturday night on YouTube.
What a sentence.
Yeah, no, it was great. Now, and I've heard Maxwell Frost, and I would have loved to talk to him about this. Was very involved with Coachella before he became a congressman. And he introduced Bernie Sanders before, and Bernie Sanders introduced the band Clairo, actually. It was pretty wild. And would have liked to talk to him about that. But
Maxwell Frost threw his own music festival in Orlando.
Yes, he did. Had good information.
Yeah, Phoebe Bridgers was there. If you're a music head, you're losing your mind.
Yeah,
here.
if you like the Maxwell Frost interview, we'd love to hear from you. 813-239-9663. Okay, let's go to another interview we did just a few weeks ago, actually. But this is really actually last month. Just a few weeks ago. Yes, Laura Hine, who's the school chair of the Pinellas County School Board. But what she talked about was something that I keep with me, and that is she talking about the situation with vouchers in the school district, and you'll hear about that. But talked about this budget or this looming budget deficit we are facing here in Florida. And the fact is, nobody is talking about this now. And so the fact that we don't have a legislative session still going on because they're talking about how big of a tax cut they're going to give us. Can we really afford one? Is the question I say after listening to Laura Hine talk about the fact that the legislative, there is a prediction by the state's economist. This is not some wild liberal. This is the state economist who says we're facing deficits, not this next year, but the 2 years and 3 years out. So let's go to some sound we heard from Laura Hine back on May 9th. Here we go, Sean. You actually mentioned this on the school last month, a school board meeting, and that is we're all focused about these tax cuts and all that if you're following policy up at Tallahassee. But you said, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of this. I know we don't talk about it much covering the legislature right now, and that is that the Florida Legislative Budget Commission has said that we've got upcoming budget deficits coming up in the next couple of years, and that's going to have a real big impact on local school districts like Pinellas County. And tell us, what's maybe behind all that in terms of like the fact that, I think what's this issue you said basically that Florida public schools have been funded below inflation year over year for the past 20 years because of vouchers. So let's get into that.
I will. Thank you. So I wrote that opinion piece specifically to raise awareness. So I'm glad that you and some others have seen it. I've also started to communicate about this issue, whether it's in our school board meetings or on social media, because people aren't aware. You don't hear people saying, hey, Florida's facing a deficit. You hear us talking about tax cuts. And so, that MBA you mentioned is actually in finance. I've been a business leader. I've been a military officer. I've been, a whole range of things in my career. I am a commercial general contractor. I built the Southwest Airlines terminal. I was number 2 on that project. So managing finances and fiduciary responsibility, I take that very seriously. And once I was elected a school board member, I take both academic responsibility and fiduciary responsibilities seriously. So as I dove into our budget, and it's a $1.6 billion budget for Pinellas County Schools, that's a lot of money. And we need people who are taking a look and understanding where it's coming from, what the revenue sources are, what the expenses are, and how we can manage that and provide excellence in our academic education. So from the earliest days, I started looking at the budget because you often hear people say, oh, there's not enough money. There's not enough money. I said, $1.6 billion, it's got to be enough money. Let's look at how we're spending it. Well, as I've continued to look, every year we get our budget draft from the state, and the House puts out a budget, the Senate puts out a budget, the governor's office does. And this year they were talking about a 1% raise to the education budget, 1% from the House. So it was about 1.8% from the Senate. And I just, we experience inflation just like you, just like everybody does, right? We buy groceries, but we served 8.5 million lunches last year. 8.5 million lunches. That's a lot of groceries. And so when you're getting a 1% increase, think about the inflationary cost to the budget that we serve. At any rate, as I start looking into it, why? Why is it only 1%? If we know that inflation also gives additional revenue into the state, right? Because that sales tax is also slightly inflated with the inflated cost. Why is education funded below inflation? And as you said, I educated people that it has been for 20 years. For 20 years, it's been systematically funded below inflation. Well, this year, I started looking at the Legislative Budget Commission report. Anybody can look this up. This isn't Laura Hine. It's the Senate Appropriations Committee, the House Appropriations Committee. Every year, they publish a 3-year financial outlook for the state of Florida. Well, if you look at it, the coming fiscal year, we're okay. We're about $2.6 billion in the plus. But the very next year, we're exactly opposite. We're $2.6 billion in deficit, and then almost $7 billion in deficit in year 3. And alarms are going off in my head as I'm reading this, and I think, are they talking about this? I don't hear anybody talking about this deficit. Why? Well, the report tells us why, really, really clearly. The number one reason we are facing a deficit is education, which I'm going to talk more about, and a very close second is Medicaid. On the education front, I want to make really clear that this is not our K-12 public schools. It's not the budget of our K-12 public schools that is putting us into deficit. And the report spells this out. What it is that in 2023, the state of Florida decided to rapidly expand the voucher program. So people might remember that 25 years ago when we first started vouchers, right? 25 years ago. Under Jeb Bush, right? And yeah, we could go a lot into that history. We also, 25 years ago, is when we started school accountability, the accountability system that provides the grades for school, right? A school, B school. We started the state test and really focused on ROI, that return on investment. How can the state demonstrate that these large amount of tax dollars is going to good use, or which schools are struggling and where we do need to shine the flashlight? So I do believe in that kind of fiscal and academic accountability. Yeah. But then the vouchers for non-public students came about first with students with disabilities under the McKay Scholarship, right? And so students who couldn't get their needs met because of disabilities could get that voucher to get those needs met elsewhere. I absolutely support that, and I think most people do. And then it blended into low-income students. Now, through the Florida tax credit. So what that means, what a tax credit means is that a company, instead of paying the corporate tax credit or excise or alcohol beverage sales tax, or a number of different tax credits that they can get, they give money to the Step Up for Students side for this voucher for students with low income who are in a struggling public school. So that's a really important piece. They're already in a struggling public school. They're low income, which the legislature first defined as 150% of the federal poverty level. This is back in 2001, 2005. They start gradually raising that low income, 200%, 300% of the federal poverty level, up to the point where almost half of Floridians qualify as low income to get one of these vouchers, to get you to leave your public school and go to a non-public school. So that's where we stood about 3 years ago. And I would say it went from $50 million in 2001 of diverted tax revenue to almost $1 billion. So every year it grew and grew and grew to about $1 billion cost. Well, in 2023, the legislature passed what's called universal vouchers. So I don't think people understand that now there is no income limit at all, and you can already be in private school.
So this is a whole escalation. I compared to being on steroids, basically, from what we already had. And it was the then House Speaker, Paul Renner, that was his baby. I think it was called HB1 that year, and that was a big priority. And it got pushback from, All right, we're going to cut that off right there. That was an interview with Pinellas County School Board Chair Laura Hine from May 9th. If you're just tuning in, it's 11:43 in the a.m. I'm Mitch Perry with Sean Canan and Ray Roa from The Skinny here. We're doing a little differently today. We're breaking in because we're fundraising. We're trying to raise $1,300 in the next 17 minutes, and we have had a few callers call in the last couple of minutes here to contribute to the show. We want to thank you so much. Let's give a shout out to, we've got John from Holiday, who says he enjoyed the interview with the Congressman. Thank you for that. Yes, we had Maxwell Frost on live just a few minutes ago. John is going a T-shirt, and thank you for contributing $120. And also James Shaw. Yes, James, great to hear from you. Also contributed to the Circle of Friends, $120, $10 a month. It's very affordable, folks. I think you can do that, $10 a month. I mean, if you can. Maybe you can, but if you can, he's going to get that core backpack we were talking about, Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much, James. All right, helps us get closer to that goal of $1,300 we're trying to reach the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the caller and the new member of this WNF community reference the interview, because when you think about radio, the only thing that limits you from accessing the radio is obviously a radio or something you can listen with, your sense of hearing, but also electricity. But other than that, this is a publication and an independent media news outlet with no paywalls. Right? There's so many places where you have to sign into something or even pay something to get there. And every organization is entitled to figure it out their own way. But this one has chosen to be free, to make it access just wide open. People do want to pay for news, guys, but it's hard out there right now. So if knowledge is power, as the congressman said, if our news outlet's job is to give people knowledge so they can make decisions about their lives, about their families' lives, and how they're going to make it through the day, then our work is crucial. And if it feels crucial to you, then we need you to kind of hop in. This is something we talk about a lot at Creative Loafing. When you donate to something like this, you open the door for somebody else who cannot. You are making news accessible for somebody who maybe doesn't have the means. And we want to thank somebody here who is doing that as well. Brooke Wilson in Ridge Manor, Florida, is pitching in huge for us. $240. That's a $20 monthly donation, joining the circle of friends here with us today. Brooke, thank you so much for doing that. I think that gets our goal here down to about $800 That's a lot of money we need to raise here in 14 minutes. 813-239-9663 is the number. You can go to WMNF.org. You'll land on the splash page with all the summer swag that you can get. Tell them about the beach mat, Mitch.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Sean, why don't you thank some people here?
Yeah, I can do that. So when you call that number, 813-239-9663, you're going to talk to one of our great phone bank volunteers, and they're being supported right now by our community partners at New World Tampa. Lynn, Steve, and Nancy Bird and the entire crew up there have donated food for our hungry volunteers and staff. They're located at 810 East Skagway Avenue in North Tampa. They've sent an array of pizza and hummus, and we're so appreciative of their ongoing support of community radio and WMNF. So thanks to our food donors. But if you want to pick up your own gift when you make a donation, that beach sand mat is a lightweight mat. It has a carry bag. It's 55 inches by 78 inches, and it's available for a donation of $65 or more. So if you want to make a contribution to support the Skinny, help us reach our goal, you can, if it's $65 or more, you can select the beach sand mat to be one of your thank you gift.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you right now. Again, 813-239-9663. You are listening to The Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM. We're this public, non-commercial radio station. Fundraising this week, our summer fundraising drive. It's going to go for another few days.
We don't do this that often, Sean, right?
We just come 3 times a year.
3 weeks of the year. This is the second of the third Fridays. We'll do it. We'll go back to regular programming next week. Also, another great fun gift that's kind of a summer thing for the summer drive. That's a bandana. WMNF bandana is available for a $45 donation that you can get right now. And yeah, it kind of looks cool here the way that I see our program or music director here is shown here in this photo here. Again, you can get that right now if you give us a call. But again, you can talk to our phone operators there. They can mention some other gifts that are available, but it's really, we want to hear from you. We need to get a few more calls here, kind of make it feel better about ourselves here. We are broadcasting that people actually are out there hearing us every week here. We will go to some sound here in another couple of minutes, but let's just keep on talking.
You can't talk enough about.
Help us out here.
Yeah, well, people, we kind of take it for granted because we come here every Friday, but this radio station maybe has a handful of paid staffers. Yeah. Everything else that makes this place run is volunteers.
Like us.
We're here. We're volunteers, right? We come in, we
grateful
program.
to have the opportunity.
And we're grateful, too, because it helps our reporting outside of here, right? It's really great for us, but everybody plays a part. Like, to volunteer, to give your time, to cut a slice out of your time, cut a slice out of, your budget for this, it's an incredible feeling. And it doesn't happen without you guys out there. These volunteers can't come in here, answer phones without everybody pitching in a little bit. And you have to pitch in at 813-239-9663 to make this dream kind of a reality. I want to read the mission, part of the mission. There's a statement from the Nathan B. Stubblefield Board of Directors here in response to these attacks on public media. And in part, it says, we stand firm in our mission to provide a platform where beautifully diverse voices come together for a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. We remain a haven for the community through our programming, music events, and outreach.
Yeah, that says it all here. Okay, let's go to some more sound here, Sean. We can point up that Amy Keith and Keisha Mulford. So, Sean and Ray, right now, one of the things that, of course, we covered here, I was up there in Tallahassee covering the legislature. One of probably the most controversial bill of the whole session, which is being challenged in court right now, is this bill that makes it much harder to do citizen-led constitutional amendments. We're talking about the amendments 3 and 4 last year on abortion rights and marijuana, which got over 50%.
Slim margins.
They did get majority support, but it needed to get 60%, didn't get them. Now this proposal passed by the legislature would make it even harder to pass these measures. And so this is really controversial. So we had a couple guests on last month, Amy Keith with Common Cause and Keisha Mulford from the ACLU of Florida, talking to them about why they oppose this bill. And both these groups, I do believe, are part of the groups that have filed a lawsuit subsequent to this legislation, which had not passed at this point. So this is an interview from back in April. Let's go to that right now.
And as you're listening, we need $700, so please call in.
Version, but we still have incredible fines and fees, that they keep adding more to this process for petition sponsors.
Exactly. And again, listeners, we're talking about Senate Bill 7016. This is this bill regarding citizen-led constitutional amendments. Bill was moving through both chambers here. There are some variations. Another change that was made in the Senate bill was, you mentioned this, Amy, in terms of one of the things, or Keisha, you might have as well, that is reducing the number of days a sponsor has to submit signed petition forms to the appropriate supervisor elections from 30 days down to 10. Let me ask you, Keisha, why is that so significant? I mean, what we're talking about is, folks, and, as we know, a lot of folks I know were really involved with the Amendment 4, in the whole process of getting that amendment, a lot of volunteers going out and collecting signatures. So you're going to have to return them at some point to the SOE's office. Yeah. So why is that a big deal?
For us, it's a big deal because, one, the number is arbitrary. Where did this number come from? Is it 10 business days? Is it 10 days period? That's something that, well, Amy, you may know, that's something that we're still trying to figure out as an affiliate, what it is. And then also, what in a smaller number or a smaller window to turn in these petitions result in less quality control? This shouldn't be about expediency. It should be about accuracy and efficiency. And if you are pushing and as Amy mentioned, the different barriers they're putting on these petitions, you will want us to ensure that as we are sending volunteers out there, as we have folks going out there to collect these petitions, that they are accurate, because organizations, particularly these organizations who care about democracy, who are trying to get these amendments on a ballot, they don't have $500 per petition if it's wrong. And this doesn't give any of these organizations an opportunity to even correct or rectify it. I don't know how many League of Women Voters events I go to, and they're putting petitions on a table. Someone, as I rush sometimes. So if I'm rushing and I make a mistake, or if I move, or whatever the situation is, now we're going to hold the League of Women Voters, an organization that thrives off of, donations, like community donations. So we're going to hold them to a $500 fine for a mistake that I made. Give these organizations the time that's necessary to actually correct, go back to, okay, Amy, we saw this error. Would you be able to correct it or rectify it? Obviously, that petition still has to be turned in, but we're giving individuals an opportunity to do quality control checks before they actually turn it into the supervisor of elections.
And there's a lot of different provisions. We could keep on going over many of them that I think you both consider egregious. But let's go to the genesis of why Governor Ron DeSantis and the bill sponsor in the House, Jenna Persons-Mullica, has been saying why we need this, and that's the concerns about fraud, right? There was the Office of Elections, Crimes and Security, which published a report in January, asserted that more than 100 representatives of the Yes on 4 group had attempted to pass that amendment last year, had committed crimes related to gathering petitions. And just last month, that same office informed Smart and Safe Florida, which is the group working to get a constitutional amendment regarding the adult use of cannabis, now on the 2026 ballot. The Division of Elections fined them over $121,000 for allegedly submitting petitions more than 30 days after voters signed them, which is a violation of existing law. Lee County Republican Jenna Persons-Mullica, who was, again, I said, sponsoring the bill, she said last week, we have seen widespread and rampant fraud in the state and in this process. We have evidence that we cannot take a blind eye to. We must take further action to put integrity back into the initiative process.
Is that fair, Amy Keith? I mean, don't we don't want fraud, obviously. So is this going too far? But is there a legitimate issue about petition fraud here?
Look, everybody agrees the bad actors should be held accountable. And we know that this is a process which is robust and that works. This is not a good faith effort to hold bad actors accountable. I mean, we know that the legislature has been trying to kill the ballot initiative process for over 20 years, ever since we passed minimum wage the first time. And they just never had a propaganda machine behind them helping them do it. You look at this, and how do I know that this isn't a good faith effort for dealing with bad actors in this process? How do I know that this is really about taking the process out of the hands of Floridians? Because, they're making it a felony to collect petitions from your book club. That's not about bad actors in the process when you're trying to make it a felony for people to collect petitions from more than 2 of their friends. It's, we know that this isn't really about bad actors when they're forcing Floridians to put their personal identity number onto the petition form and then explicitly stating that form is a public record. They are putting Floridians' information at risk. We know that this is fundamentally not a good faith effort to address anything. Everybody agrees bad actors, should be held accountable. The process works for that. This bill is not about that. This bill is about making this process impossible for Floridians. It continues a tradition of doing that, which has been around for 20 years.
Again, if you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to The Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM.
We're going to go live now back. Okay, we're back. That was Amy Keith from Common Cause talking about the very controversial bill that's going to make it much difficult. Any neutral observer would tell you that. That's why that's why Ron DeSantis supports it, to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot. That was Amy Keith from Common Cause and Keisha Mulford from the ACLU of Florida. I'm Mitch Perry with Ray Rowe and Sean Canan. It's 11:56. We only have a couple minutes left to go, guys, and we need to raise, $600 left before 12 noon.
Yeah, we need that. So we need somebody to come in huge, maybe with a $500 contribution here. The phone number is 813-239-9663. The kindest people in the world will pick up the phone in the room and get that over here, and we'll get this show across the finish line here, and we'll tell the station that shows like this, that public affairs matters. There's a lot of decisions that have to get made about what gets on the air and what doesn't at this station. How many hours a week is it that Randy says, Sean, that you get on the air that you have to fill?
Oh gosh, now I've forgotten.
Yeah. It's and some of those, you say how much of it is going to be news, how much of it is going to be music, and when you make a contribution, you say that news is important for this block in the middle of the day, and the station can move forward with that. So it's a statement from you, and we need to hear from you. We need to know that shows like this are important. 813-239-9663 is the number that we need you to call right now, because we need about $600.
We do, and you can be a Circle of Friends, contributor. Again, $10 a month for the entire year. We've had several people do that. Again, you can do that right now. 813-239-9663. If you've been thinking about it, now's the time to do it. We only have a couple minutes left to go. Help us make our goal here.
And we want to thank Sydney Wilson from St. Petersburg. Also getting the beach sand mat for $65 is the gift, making a $100 contribution for us today. So we're at $500 that we need now. Sydney, thank you so much for calling in. St. Petersburg, just right there. It's really cool to think about all the people that we talk to on the other end of the radio. I've been spending a lot of time in St. Pete lately doing the coffee pot Bayou thing. You just look at people and you're like, man, we all live here together. And to make a station like this run, we need everybody to pitch in. So thank you, Sydney, for pitching in here.
Yeah, absolutely. WMNF is a part of the great mosaic that is the Tampa Bay area. We've got so many great things going on here in the 13th biggest media market in the country here. This has been a major part, or certainly a contributing part of it, and you've been a part of it, obviously listening the last year, maybe even listening for all 6 years that this station's been on the existence here. We appreciate you so much, and we're hoping that you can kind of show your appreciation. If you haven't already done it, I know some people have called us right now, and we're so grateful for that. Looking for a couple more phone calls here. We only have a little bit over a minute to go here. Again, 813-239-9663. I'd love to say your name on the air here before I leave at 12:01. Can we do it?
We would love to do that. And Mitch, you kind of alluded to this. So many people moving here all the time. And not everybody that moves here is a transplant that wants to bring, their own life back down here. A lot of people want to assimilate and contribute. And this is a chance for all those noobs, to join the natives here and be a part of something. And it's an incredible feeling when you join the WMNF family and you become connected to the station via your donation, $5, $10, $15, $25, $2,500. We need $500 here in the next 130 something seconds to make it before news headlines. So 813-239-9663. Please contribute to the skinny. We're going to cut into Joe Ellen's time to thank a few people if we have any last minute things. But Joe Ellen is in Studio One now. Her show, a mix of like an art magazine that's on the air. So it's a public affairs show, but it also has music, and we talk about art, these things that people say are so important to the fabric of our community. So if public affairs is important to you, if news is important to you, 813-239-9663 is the number we need right now.
Yeah, this is, again, show your support for independent media in the Tampa Bay area. We are getting so close.
We got
another call, I think. Yes, yeah, right.
Yeah. So we want to thank, this is anonymous, actually.
Okay.
And they wanted to have a tribute to Lux Interior here with a contribution. So thank you so much. Again, we still need about just under $600 here, Sean. The music is starting on us. That's because NPR News is coming. If you believe in airing NPR News, it ain't free, people. We need this to happen. It's free for us to come together on the radio, but we need everybody to pitch in. Please support live, local, independent radio here.
Again, $120 contribution gave you this new WMNF Cooler backpack that will keep your drinks and snacks cool at the beach this summer. Call us right now, 813-239-9663. We are the Skinny here. I'm Ray Rowe with Mitch Perry. Sean Canan's been at the board here, and we thank you so much for listening to the last hour. It's a little wild.
Thank you to all the contributions here to WMNF Tampa. It really, really means a lot.
And this fundraiser will go on for days. If somehow you couldn't get to the phone right now, you got plenty of time the rest of the day, the next few days.
We'll have a blog
keep the station on the air. That's what we're hoping for here.
Please. Thank you so much to everybody who pitched in. Looking forward to hearing
WMNF Tampa.